Hello, hello. Welcome back. Okay, I want you to imagine for a second a life that feels really good. And maybe your life feels pretty good. You're like, my life actually doesn't feel bad. But imagine a life that feels really good. And maybe you're like, okay, there's a few areas that could be a little bit better. Um, because I want to start here because I used to be the mom who was going through the motions of life. I was taking care of everybody else, and I thought that life was pretty good. I never really looked at it as like, oh my gosh, life sucks. Okay, well, I did sometimes because we were living paycheck to paycheck and I was overwhelmed and frustrated a lot. But sorry, I had to take a little sip of water. Um, but overall, I was like, this is just how life is. I never really believed or thought that it was going to be different. I was kind of playing victim to my circumstance and just thinking this is what there is. We're going to barely survive. We're going to live paycheck to paycheck. I'm not going to be able to afford to go on the vacations that I want to go on or live the life that I want to live. I wasn't showing up as the mom that I desired to be. I was super reactive. I yelled at my kids. You know how you get in that state of overwhelm and then you're just like, "Oh my gosh, stop talking." Just kind of that snappy version of you. That's kind of where I was at. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And one day, I don't even know why, but I just remember I had three kids at this time, and my one was crying in my lap on the living room floor. And I was like, I am done. I can't live this way anymore. I'm over it. And that is when I think a really big shift happened within me. And I had remembered this journal, my journal that my grandma, my nana gave me. And in it, she tucked this magazine article. And it had been a long time since I had read it. And it was something about the benefits journaling has on your brain. Pulled it out, read the article, and I started journaling. So simple. I started writing how I was feeling, how my day went, what I was thinking, and then it kind of started to evolve. And then I started to find, I don't even know how I heard about coaching or podcasts. But I started listening to some podcasts. And then eventually, when I got past all of my money shit, I'm not past all of it, but when I got past a lot of that, I finally made an investment in myself because and let's fast forward. I mean, this was 8 years of work. So let's fast forward a little bit when I finally hired the coach. And that was the first time I had ever invested that kind of money into myself, and I felt guilty for it. I didn't think that I should do it, but I really wanted to, and I really knew that that was probably one of the only ways that I was going to get past the circumstance that I was in. So, popped that baby on a credit card with 6 months no interest or whatever. And I got to work. And that was my most inspired, most invigorating times in my life. And I've had many of those since, but that was my first experience with really feeling really good and excited about where life could take me. And that's really when I started to make a lot of shifts. So I had been doing a lot of the mindset work and still kind of perpetuating the same patterns with money and with our circumstances, but it was getting a little bit better and better each time. So it's okay, we would make more money, then we would still find ourselves tight, but able to pay our bills. And then we'd get a little bit more money, and then we'd have $100 extra for the month. And it just slowly kept getting better and better. And then after hiring the coach is when things really took off. And it was not I kept kind of going through that same cycle, and I was like, why can't I break through this? Why am I not getting further ahead? And I honestly don't even know what it was. I ended up joining a bad mastermind. I know I've talked about it a lot of times. This just really showed me the shady side of coaching, and that threw me into a really bad headspace. It was the most money I had spent on myself. It was a terrible experience. The program wasn't what I was told that it was on the call, and when I called them out on it, I was like pushed aside and like told, well, sorry, like no refunds, and it was fine. Now it's fine. It wasn't fine at the time. It sucked going through that. But that really pushed me into a state of like coming back to me and looking for what else was out there. This is when I found Gabby Bernstein. I decided I'm not joining any more programs. I'm going on a healing journey. And this is when Gabby Bernstein came into my world. So I had read a couple of her books that summer. I had done all the homework in the books. And then breathwork found its way to me. Don't know how. It was around the time that my dad got hit by a car. If you haven't heard that one, I have a whole episode on how breathwork, like my whole breathwork journey. But it found me at the time that I was in a really low place in life and knew that I needed more than just mindset work. And here's what I will tell you. If you are wanting to create a life that feels good, you cannot mindset your way out of that shit. You need a somatic practice, which is what breathwork is. So is what breathwork does is it helps us get out of our head and into our body, because our mind and our body are connected. They are one, but our body stores a lot of the trauma and stories and beliefs that we have been holding on to for our entire life. It is why we continue to perpetuate patterns, why we continue to go through the same cycles, why we continue to create the same relationships in our lives. Like, let's just say you're in a relationship that you don't enjoy. Like, it's everything that we've stored. It's the trauma from our past. It's the stories and beliefs that we have held on to about ourselves from our past that keeps us stuck right where we're at. And when we start to let go of some of that energy from our body and release the stuck trauma, release the stories, release the beliefs, then we are able to tap into us. We are finally able to break through that glass ceiling that our mind has put on us, because our mind wants to keep us safe, right? So like inside our body, we're still like a 9-year-old girl in some areas of our life. And this is breathwork is like where you get to go back and like tap in and like kind of reparent yourself. If you've ever heard the term reparenting yourself, that's kind of what we can do in breathwork. I utilize something that I call the breathwork method. It is a way, it's like a style that I have adopted and created to help you really integrate the breathwork into your life. And not just like a typical breathwork session where you come in and you breathe and then you're like, okay, you're done. It's like, no, that's how are we going to incorporate it into our life? How are we going to tap into that highest version of you? That is what the breathwork method is. But never in a million years did I think that I would be sitting where I am at now. Never in a million years did I think that I could build a business, that I could show up as a mom that I wanted to be, that I would have this podcast. This podcast was a dream of mine for years before I ever dared start it. And when we reconnect our mind and our body and we tap into the truest, most authentic essence of us, when you tap into her, that is when you start to create the most powerful things in your life. That is when you start to change the trajectory of where you are headed, where you become the example to your kids that your circumstances don't define you and that you can change it at any time. And so I want you to imagine, close your eyes for a second and just imagine a life that feels really good, where you have plenty of money for the things that you desire to do, where you have the freedom with your time to be at the kids' events that you want to go to. Maybe that's sports. For us, we live a wrestling life, and it takes up like 5 nights a week. Well, it's 4 nights a week, and then the weekends. We're at a tournament almost every weekend. So I just want you to think about being able to live a life that feels good while also being available and happily available, right? There's a difference between like showing up to the thing, stressing in our brain about the money that we're spending on it, or like, where are we going to get the gas money for the next wrestling tournament next week, or what, like whatever it is. These are things that I used to stress about all the time. It typically was mostly around camping. We would go camping a lot, but we were spending like $300 every weekend on camping. But thinking about showing up happy without that weight of like money and all the things to do, like you just get to show up and enjoy and be present, and it all feels good. Because I will tell you, like, I was the girl that got pregnant at 18. I had my baby when I was 19. We lived paycheck to paycheck. Our marriage wasn't the greatest. My husband didn't communicate. I was taking care of everything. He didn't ask me to, but I just thought it was what I should do. So I was like shooting all over myself. I was trying to live by society's norms. I was trying to live what my religion had taught me, generational patterns. I had trauma from my childhood. Like, all of this baggage I was carrying, and never in a million years did I think that I would see myself where I am at today. And so I just want you to know that, like, yes, the work to get here isn't always the funnest. It's tapping into you, it's facing those things that are holding you back, and it's recognizing where your inaction has kept you stuck where you are at. That was the hardest thing for me to face, was like realizing, oh my gosh, I just like dwelled in, well, you don't know how it is because like we're living paycheck to paycheck and we don't have any money. And that's easy for you to say because you're rich, right? Like when I used to watch like the Tony Robbinses of the world, or Dean Graziosi, or like all of these wealthy people who would like post on social media and be like, oh yeah, like you can do this, it's great. I'd be like, yeah, easy for you to say because you're there. But I've come to realize we all start at zero. We all start at zero. We all start with a lot of the same doubts and a lot of the same fears. And we don't just start a business or start doing something and then wake up next week with thousands of dollars in our bank account. That's not how it works. This has been years in the making for me. And so it may not be like easy, fun, all the time work. I quite enjoy doing the work on myself and tapping in and noticing new behaviors and gaining new awarenesses as to why I do the things that I do and why I'm at where I'm at. But this is the work that will get you there. And you can either do hard work, or you can live a hard life, and you can hit your deathbed wishing that you would have just tried something. Because I know that if you're here, there's probably a dream on your heart, and that dream was meant for you. Like that was made for you. And just like my dream of like the breathwork collective, which doors are open, it was a dream of mine because I want to help women like you truly create a life you love with kids in tow. And by doing that, you get to tap in, you get to do the hard work. And I believe if you're here, you're ready for that because you're listening. And this work is going to get you where you want to go. And it's going to help you create a life that feels really good. And so I just want you to imagine a life that feels the way that you want it to feel. You don't have, there's still stress, but you don't have like all the stresses of like, how am I going to afford that? I don't have enough time for that. And you just get to make decisions based on like desire, what you desire to do for you. And you start to realize how worthy you are of the things that you desire. That's another issue that a lot of us have, is that just not thinking that we're worthy of it. So I want you to start really thinking about, what would your life look like if it felt good? What feels good to you? Is that financial freedom? Is that time freedom? Is that being able to afford to put your kid in all of the competitions? Let's say they do dance or gymnastics or wrestling or whatever, being able to afford to put them in everything that they want to do, and being able to fully support them and be present without stressing about the money the whole time you're sitting there. You get to just be present and enjoy, and you get to take them out to dinner after and not stress about spending $75 to $100 on a meal for the family and the gas to get there and the time because your business is also running itself. Like, I just want you to really think about what that might feel like for you, because it's going to be different for everybody, right? Your feeling good is different than my feeling good. And you get to decide what you want to create in your life. And if you are ready for that, come and join the Breathwork Collective. That is what the focus is on this year, is creating a life you love with kids in tow. We do 2 breathwork workshops every single month. We do a quarterly group life coaching call, and you get to truly tap into who you are, who you want to be, and shift internally so that your mind and your body reconnect. We unkink that hose so that everything flows through you and feels really good, and you show up as the mom that you desire to be. So if you are ready for that, click the link in the show notes. It's there, and I will talk to you next time.